Hello and welcome to Moderate Fantasy Violence, a podcast about pop culture and the world around it. I'm Nick.
And I'm Alistair.
And this fortnight, it's our BBC Centennial special, as we celebrate 100 years of the Beeb, only, I think, a couple of weeks late, by covering for the first time in, if not ever than a while, 2 BBC shows in our main review slots. First up, inevitably, it's Doctor Who, Power of the Doctor, the one-off hour-and-a-half special sending off the Jodie Whittaker Doctor in some kind of style. And then we'll be covering the 4th season of successful UK sitcom Ghosts, about, well, a bunch of ghosts haunting an old house. So, all that to come, but first, Alistair, what other BBC shows have you watched?
I think the only other BBC show I'm really on top of right now is Only Connect. But we won't be discussing that.
How's that going? Having a good service?
Yeah. I always feel, if I can get 2 or 3 questions in one episode, I feel like a genius. But yeah, I thought I do recommend Only Connect. The main thing I've come to talk about now is a film, actually. And I went to the cinema recently to see Decision to Leave. This is the new film from Korean director Park Chan-wook. He's probably most famous for directing Old Boy, which came out about 15 years ago, sort of grim, dark revenge thriller. Though his other film and TV credits include The Handmaiden, a queer period drama, which is really good, and Little Drummer Girl, based on the John le Carré novel. So he's got quite a wide range of topics he addresses in both English and Korean. This new film is a romantic thriller detective film, really crosses genre. The plot follows a detective who falls in love with a woman whilst he's investigating the suspicious circumstances around her husband's death. Yeah, and it's quite intense. It's sort of slow burn, quite psychological, quite dark film that's kind of mixing crime and romance. It's very Hitchcockian. Park Chan-wook has said in interviews how Hitchcock's a big influence on him, and this is his most Hitchcockian film. There's lots of references to Vertigo. That it was shot on 35mm, had that kind of old film look, I suppose, with like cigarette burns on the prints and things like that.
As popularised by Marvel's Werewolf by Night.
Yeah. They're clearly inspired by the great Werewolf by Night. Yeah, if you're interested in crime thrillers and interesting psychological dramas, it's certainly worth checking out.
Okay, is this going to win piles of Oscars? Is this our first unsuccessful Oscar prediction?
It's possible. I think it's definitely in with a good chance for sort of best foreign language film. It's certainly, getting a good reception. There's quite a few billboards on the tube advertising it, so someone seems to think that there's a big audience for it. Yeah, Park Chan-wook is a big name in South Korean cinema. Like I say, Old Boy was like a kind of international hit.
Yeah, that is a film that even I have seen.
Yeah. It's a good film. It's got the obviously almost unwatchably dark live octopus eating scene.
Yeah, I remember that. Famous, for its horrendous live octopus eating scene and its almost as horrendous unpleasant ending. Yeah.
So he's got sort of form for the dark crime thrillers. Yeah, I mean, again, there's a crime subplot to the Handmaiden. Little Drummer Girl's a spy TV show, so again, there's subterfuge, there's things like that going on. This film is as less bleak and dark and disturbed as Old Boy is, but it does have that kind of the edge of the unpleasantness that lurks between the kind of the surface of civilization.
But no on-screen eating of animals.
Only cooked ones.
No.
So there are several dinner scenes.
So, because Old Boy had quite a few long, unpleasant action scenes as well. Is this an action film?
It's more of a crime film. There aren't sort of chases and fights and things like that. It's kind of, there are a lot of twists though that really keep it kind of exciting. And there's several murders along the way, and there's a lot of did she kill her husband because he died in a climbing accident? And there's a lot of did he slip? Did he jump? Was he pushed? And there's more twists than just to do with the husband's death as well. And there's layers to it that keep you kind of interested.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds credible.
Yeah, I would, strongly recommend this. Could be one of the ones to watch for the Oscar season. Might be the token non-English language Best Picture nominee, and probably a good shout for Best Foreign Language Film. But even if you're a fan of crime films, I certainly recommend it.
Cool.
Anyway, that's what I've been up to recently. Nick, what have you been watching, reading, listening that you can recommend to our fans?
Well, a little less niche. In fact, so obvious we've actually already covered it. I have finished off the first series of House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel from HBO, focusing on a civil war between the Targaryen family as they vie for control of the Iron Throne thanks to a succession crisis caused by the king's indecisiveness. So I've seen the whole first season, which builds to a satisfying climax as inevitably, in the least spoilery way possible, I guess, the inevitable succession crisis is triggered and everyone has to decide what they're actually going to do. And yeah, it's good, this. I enjoyed it when we watched the first 3 episodes for the podcast, and I enjoyed it here. It's got a nice sort of steady build of drama, which feels a bit different to Game of Thrones, which focused on about 20 characters, building them very slowly through these sort of coming back just for the major moments in their life. Whereas this is more of a sort of long, agonising, slow build drama focusing on the same characters going through these long processes. Yeah, it's got lots of good actors doing meaningful looks based on, you know, the gentle slights that someone might have committed by turning to this person rather than that person, or not holding up that protocol. You'll be amazed how much shit you could absorb about the royal protocol of the Targaryens just by watching this. Although you will never get a handle on what everyone is called, because they're all just called the same few made up weird fantasy names.
Cool. Well, I'm glad this has remained consistently good. Yeah, it's interesting that it has sort of bubbled up on social media as something that people are making memes about and sort of discussing. So it is weird that they've managed to capture the zeitgeist a bit more, considering people were so disappointed with the ending of Game of Thrones, and when they announced they were doing more, there was a real sort of eye roll and like, okay, so just more Game of Thrones because they think we're idiots and that's what we want. But then actually, weirdly, it has managed to get back some of the prestige that Game of Thrones once had.
Well, we liked Game of Thrones for a good 5-6 seasons. All you had to do is not be shit.
Note to editor, don't be shit.
It's easier when you think about it. Yeah, just by focusing on hiring some decent actors and giving them this sort of psychodrama to play out. It's got that nice sort of dramatic beat you sort of want of characters making obviously bad decisions for reasons that do sort of make sense for their characters, but you're still just sort of watching going, no, don't do that. No, of course you've done it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is the sort of thing you want, I feel, in a good drama. Characters that are able to, make mistakes in a way that you sort of feel for, but doesn't feel like, they're jerking out of character to service the plot. And yeah, this sort of sweeping royal drama vibe, I sort of want to say it's like Game of Thrones crossed with The Crown, with the tiny caveat, but I've never seen The Crown. Also got Matt Smith in it, though.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a fact. But yeah, it's bringing something different enough, I think, but it does feel like it's not just, you like Game of Thrones, here's some more, which I think is good, because for all that I have also watched and enjoyed those kinds of spin-offs, because I'm a simple child. I think if you want to actually be credible and have people able to watch it without feeling like they have to apologise for liking it, that is a good idea.
Yeah. Again, note to editor. Fans, don't make the fans apologise for liking this. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they've got this sort of internecine struggle element, which is quite different, yeah. And again, court politics isn't something they particularly explored in Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is set during a period of sort of open rebellion and civil war in the kingdom, where I suppose this is a kind of, more focused on court politics and more focused on the struggle within a household than between households.
Yeah, and also they've got this angle of this sort of epic time span that it's set over. I'm not going to spoil in detail, but over the course of this season there are many, like at least about 3, if not 4, fairly large time jumps between various episodes, involving aging makeup and recastings to varying degrees of success. It mostly works. There's a couple of characters who are recast in ways that make you think a bit, but you now look younger than you. It's weird. But for the most part, it does work in providing, again, this sort of sense of the sprawling epic in a different way to Game of Thrones. Instead of sprawling across space, I guess, but sprawling across time.
Yeah, as you say, all these things are necessary to make this seem actually fresh and original, not just trying to bring something back that was popular for the sake of just getting attention.
Yeah, and obviously this sort of time-passing recasting shit is what brings about the comparisons to The Crown. But yeah, it does do it well. It does feel like they know where they're going and what they're doing, and they've possibly wisely admitted in interviews that they have a 4-season plan and then it'll end, which is very appealing, obviously, to jaded, previously hurt Game of Thrones fans.
Also, crucially, I think it's based on a story that's been finished by George R.R. Martin. I think the book it's based on is a sort of written as a non-fiction history of Westeros.
I hate to break it to you, but it is still fictional.
Obviously, I don't know how to put this. I suppose, it's written as in non-fiction within the universe of Westeros.
Yeah, it's written as a history, not a novel, yeah. As far as I know, I have not read this book. I believe I have it on my Kindle from a past sale, but not read it. It's adapting a book that has actually been finished, which obviously gives it a real advantage over Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I feel that is where they kind of became unstuck a bit.
So yeah, for the record, I mean, other people have said this before, but yeah, this is decent. This is good. If you like the sort of stabby, edgy, dangerous fantasy, but done in a slightly different way, then yeah, they've done it. They've done a pretty good job. It's got good actors in it. And for the record, to do the inevitable comparison, yes, now that I've seen the whole first season of both, this is much better than The Rings of Power, guys. Much, much better.
I'm glad we finally addressed that after last episode. Yeah. There was a question mark over that.
Yeah, no, proud to say I've now seen the whole first season and came away liking it and interested in the characters, which puts it over the top.
Next up in this 100 Years of the BBC special, we will be discussing Power of the Doctor, a special feature-length Doctor Who adventure made for the 100th anniversary of Auntie, that is also Jodie Whittaker's last outing as the Doctor. The Master, the Daleks, and the Cybermen are all threatening Earth, but the Doctor has help not only from companions Yaz and Dan, but with also former companions Ace and Tegan. Can they stop the Master's crazy new scheme to destroy the world and the Doctor? We've seen this special adventure. Nick, what did you think of it?
Yeah, this continues the recent trend of these Chibnall Whittaker episodes being okay, being better than they were in the first couple of years. It's decent, it's watchable, it has a bit of plot momentum, it has at least a few memorable good moments and good scenes. It doesn't get too bogged down in explaining shit. It doesn't quite transcend and become amazing. To be honest, I think the main thing letting it down is possibly the dialogue, which just never quite becomes, fun and sparkling in the same way that, the good episodes by Davis and Moffat did. There's just a slight flatness to it, which especially in the Regeneration episode, where you really want to feel a bit of emotion, just isn't quite there, and it's kind of frustrating. I'm still not sure it's really about anything. What does the title even mean? But it feels like it's at least a solid story. It zips along. It's actually got quite a sort of cleverish concept at its core. Like, the Master's plan to kill the unkillable Doctor is actually a decent idea that I don't think they've done before, and did make me go, oh yeah, good idea, when they revealed it. So fair enough, the arc lands, we understand why it's significant. It does end in a way that doesn't feel like a cop-out. As I say, I didn't love it, but I was entertained enough watching it, and considering how negative I've been about past series written by Chris Chibnall, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's pretty much bang on the money. There's a lot going on in this. Quite a lot of plot. It's an hour and a half, but they do get a lot in. So yeah, you won't find your attention wandering. Not quite as much as they did with Doctor Who Flux. This isn't quite that level of hot mess that I think Flux achieved.
Yeah, I do feel like they brought in a lot of stuff. Like, in the first half hour of this, I was thinking a bit, my God, is there any way they're ever going to bring this together into a coherent story?
Yeah.
And then, to their credit, they just about did. It's a lot. It's very messy. There are a couple of strands that I don't think are really tied down, but it does just about come together in a way that, by Doctor Who standards, might almost make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of them, and it does happen with Doctor Who when you kind of feel like that was a bit of a cop-out, or the kind of, at the end they just sort of magicked away, the villain or whatever the problem was, or something like that. Yeah, it's Doctor Who, it plays fast and loose with everything from science to plot consistency. I mean, I kind of feel that, like, nitpicking over intricate details of Doctor Who is something of a fool's game. It's more about the overall feeling. I think we discussed in this podcast, that's why Russell T Davies is such a good Doctor Who lead writer and showrunner, because he always nails a kind of big emotional arc and like a big emotional feeling, even though everyone in the world's saying in the name of the Doctor. Does that make sense? I don't know, but it's a nice emotional moment, so it kind of works. And this has that emotional arc that is consistent and sort of pays off, and you don't feel like you've been cheated. I think there were quite a few things that it threw out, especially in the early part, that sort of didn't really go anywhere. There's a bit where the Master is being Rasputin, not really sure what that contributed to the plot, other than so they could have Boney M's Rah Rah Rasputin played at one point. Which was at least funny, but I'm not really sure. Yeah, the whole bit of the Master inserting himself into famous paintings. Once again, not really sure what that is, unless it was just supposed to be some kind of grandiose calling card to get the Doctor's attention. There's various other little things that were thrown out. I'm quite glad they didn't bring in Division or any of that nonsense to overcomplicate and underwhelm things.
Yeah, the fact that none of the Division Timeless Child stuff was mentioned is a huge bonus point for me. I thought they might bring it in. Honestly, I thought they might just quietly retcon it back out to avoid anyone else having to deal with it. But no, they've left it in, so I guess maybe Russell T Davies will mention it or kick it out or something. I don't know. Well, they did bring back the regenerating Cyber Masters.
Yeah.
The Time Lord Cybermen, which, of all the concepts Chris Chibnall has introduced, are actually quite a fun aesthetic, so fair enough.
Yeah, no, I thought that worked. I'm glad that they picked that up. Yeah, with a quite good action scene. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes straight in with a robbery on a train through space, straight in with the action. There's regenerating Cybermen, there's the companions trying to board the train. It's it's got spectacle as well. So yeah, I mean, it's got the sort of things you want from a kind of epic Doctor Who adventure, a regeneration special.
Yeah, this story with the Master, I mean, it does kind of reduce the character to being basically a panto villain.
Yeah.
Sacha Dhawan's Master here is just a panto villain, and he plays it like that.
Yeah, it's done with a nod and a wink and he's not trying to, I don't know, like, John Seymour had a sort of, a slightly more subtle tone to it and things like that. And he was trying to convey, this is a tormented person with stuff going on and beliefs to the surface, yeah, you're right. This is much more panto villain, but it's done in a knowing way.
Yeah, it lands just about because that's what the story is. I mean, it's quite fun in a way, I guess, to have the Master just be a supervillain, try to kill the Doctor with a needlessly elaborate plan. You know, previous Master stories by Moffat and Davis have focused a bit more on the tragedy of the character or the possible redeemability of the character, and those were various levels of good stories, mostly. But yeah, here he's just a villain trying to kill the Doctor with a massive stupid plan, and you know what? He hasn't actually fully done this a lot of the time in New Doctor Who, so whatever. Let him do it. At least it's a good plan.
Yeah, especially it's a regeneration special, so the death of the Doctor is usually a theme for regeneration specials. And yeah, the sort of the Doctor's, well, oldest enemy in, I guess, the chronology of the show, in the show's own chronology, however you put that, yeah, is coming back to kill him, or kill her.
Yeah.
In this case. But yeah, but obviously it's not like the Master hasn't tried to kill the Doctor before, although obviously not in this very elaborate way, which we're dancing around spoiling, because if you not see it...
It's been 2.5 weeks.
The fans have seen it.
If you're that bothered about spoilers for the power of the Doctor, then surely you've seen it by now. Surely.
Yeah.
So his actual plan, the forced regeneration thing.
He sort of kind of becomes the Doctor in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as I say, as a way of killing the unkillable Doctor, it's not a bad idea. I mean, I gather it's got some basis in past stories, because I think they forced Troughton to regenerate into Pertwee or something.
Yes, this is correct. This is the War Games, which is the last Patrick Troughton Doctor Who adventure when the Time Lords pick up the Doctor, say you've been messing around with space and time, which you're not supposed to do. Time Lords are supposed to be distant and sort of godlike and removed. So yeah, the Doctor's punishment is a forced regeneration into John Pertwee, the third Doctor, and also is imprisoned in 20th century Earth. There's several bits when the Doctor doesn't travel in time and is set present day, and that's when the unit stuff really kicks off, which again is folded in here with the unit plot line with the character who's supposed to be the Brigadier's daughter, who's now in charge of unit. I mean, there's lots of little nods and consistencies to that time, that period, which again, as you mentioned, the reference to the War Games and the forced regeneration. They've got the Master shrinking his victims into sort of tiny toy versions. That's a thing the Master's done several times, especially the Anthony Ainley's Master, who was the Master opposite Peter Davison, Fifth Doctor. And obviously we've got Tegan back from the Peter Davison era, which we discussed on our most recent recommendations one. And Ace, the final companion of Old Who, also returns. So yeah, there's a lot of winks and nods, for a 100th special and, for a regeneration special, it's a time to get a little treats for the fans, I suppose.
Yeah, there's definitely some fan service in here, but to be honest, I don't mind being serviced in this way. I mean, to be fair, I'm mostly a New Who fan. I'm not really the one getting a damn good servicing. But yeah, nonetheless, there's some past Doctor cameos. I mean, to be fair, I was slightly critical of the level of emotion elicited in this episode. Weirdly, I'd say, I almost got more emotion out of the final scenes between the old Doctors and their companions.
Yeah, that was really nice, yeah.
Those were really nice scenes. I actually felt a trickle of emotion there. Honestly, more than I did when the 13th Doctor regenerated.
Yeah, but I mean, they were also addressing some plot lines and emotional arcs that had been left hanging by Doctor Who in the 80s. So it was nice to see that. And yeah, I really enjoyed seeing Peter Davison come back, Colin Baker come back, Paul McGann come back, Sylvester McCoy. No Tom Baker, but he is quite old at this point.
Yeah, and no New Who Doctors reprising their parts, except for, well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, and a brief cameo from the man, I've forgotten his name, who's basically playing the William Hartnell Doctor now. He's done it.
Oh, David Bradley.
Yeah, David Bradley. He's not only played William Hartnell in a drama about Doctor Who, he's now played the first Doctor about 4 times on the show as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, you can make it work. It's a sort of end of the era 90-minute episode. It's the centennial of the BBC. Why not do something? Why not do all this? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like Flux. There's a lot of stuff that's thrown out there. It always keeps you going, keeps you hooked. Yeah, as we said, lots of little moments. The one thing, possibly a bit of a letdown, is I did feel that Yaz wasn't particularly well serviced, especially they've been building up to this whole Yaz falls in love with the Doctor plotline. It's nice that Yaz is the last companion to say goodbye, but I felt that could have been addressed better. Yeah,
I mean, I said earlier that, I'm quite fine with him not addressing a lot of his ongoing storylines because I felt like they were gibberish. But yeah, the Yaz stuff, especially considering that has been getting a lot of play in the last couple of episodes, they understated it quite a lot. She did get a final scene with the Doctor. It was there were a few sort of meaningful looks, but they clearly didn't want to get into that in detail.
No, which I felt is... I don't know. It's they set it up a lot and then didn't pay it off, which I feel is not great writing. I know, obviously, people in the LGBTQ community feel, well, see, some of the people I follow on Twitter feel let down by that. I guess it's not my part to speak on behalf of them, but I did find it was a disappointing ending to that plotline.
I mean, the plotline clearly got just sort of dropped, or at least, I don't know, it felt a bit... I mean, to be honest, it never entirely felt like it was a storyline they were writing on purpose. It was something that possibly emerged out of the chemistry the actors had on screen, and they sort of leaned into it a bit, but I'm not sure he really had a plan for it and an ending.
I mean, that's the task of a showrunner, is to, incorporate these things and plan ahead and, create expectations and then pay them off. I mean, that's kind of the writing 101. I mean, it's not inconsistent with the fact that the writing has been patchy the whole time with Chibnall.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, we don't live in Chris Chibnall's office. Maybe he just didn't have any idea how to pay this off. Maybe he was told by whoever the men in suits are at the BBC that he couldn't. We may never know. But one way or another, it did not go anywhere, really.
I mean, speaking of the writing, we've had a comment in about Doctor Who from Stephen Cox, commenting on Twitter. Yeah, that's Stephen Cox, author of Our Child of the Stars, which is a good book. And yeah, his take on this Doctor Who was, he thought, 1, brilliant, and 2, screaming into an overwritten void, which I think kind of sums up the writing. There is a lot going on here, and yeah, there is a lot of overwriting.
I'm pretty sure brilliant is referring to ghosts, isn't it?
Oh, that probably is referring to Ghosts. Yeah, that makes sense. That's my inability to read Twitter. Oh well. We'll park Ghosts for a while.
Yeah, there's a lot of overwriting here, yes. As we said earlier, there's a lot shoved in, which kind of works in that Doctor Who has always been a bit of a mess, but yes, it doesn't quite build it to a beautiful transcendent climax in a way that makes it feel like it was justified.
Yeah, or that there was some kind of plan behind the mess.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a vague sense of event. I mean, even Chibnall brings back a few of his own characters here, which, fair enough. It's the end of his arc. Why not? So you've got, Ashad, the damaged Cyberman character. You've got former companion Graham. You've got Vinda from Flux. As we said earlier, the Cybermasters. And you know what? As much as those characters are not things that I think about really at all in my life, it is the end of their era. I'm not going to begrudge him bringing them back.
Russell T Davies did the same.
Well, exactly, I mean, I do sort of feel that some of the latter-day Chibnall stuff has felt a bit Russell T Davies, like he's been trying to draw a bit on the spirit of old RTD to, make his episodes better.
Yeah. Again, with that focus on, like, an emotional arc above everything else.
Yeah, a sort of focus on the emotional feelings, a focus on a bit of, you could get away with a lot more if you just got a sense of momentum and fun and things happening, rather than just lots of standing around talking and endings that just fizzle out. Cough. Yes, it has made the episodes more fun, and this is, as a result, not bad. It's not great either, and in a chart of, like, all Doctor Who episodes or all New Who episodes, it would not land particularly high. But in a chart of Chibnall's episodes, it's probably solidly top third. If not top quarter, if not top 5 or 6. Yeah,
I mean, I probably overall preferred Flux. Flux, again, achieved the hot mess level of kind of smashing through the overwriting into something that was just kind of, I can't believe they did this. But as we've said, it was entertaining, and it had lots of nods to the old Who fans, which I appreciated, and, it maintained its emotional consistency to the end. And Jodie Whittaker, I thought, has been great, and I was sad to see her go. I mean, I think she's, as we discussed, let down by the writing, but she was very good in the part, and will be remembered, I think, as a good actor playing the Doctor, certainly.
Yeah, I think there was a good effort to make this story geared towards showcasing what worked about Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, this sort of kind presence, this sort of focus on her sort of community around her. And yeah, I mean, if Jodie Whittaker wants to come back and do a multi-Doctor story in like 2 or 3 years so she could be written by Russell T Davies, we'll all understand.
Yeah, I don't know what they've got planned for the 60th.
Well, we know one thing.
Yeah.
Shall we go ahead and spoil the final scene?
Yes, that's what I was... So yeah, building towards, which is, if you really don't want spoilers, run now, but I'm sure...
But now we're going to spoil the thing that's been widely reported in the media.
Yes, exactly, yeah. If you only get your media news from us, this will be a big revelation.
There'll be some other revelations you could get as well. Go outside.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, obviously, so the big revelation here is Jodie Whittaker does not regenerate into Ncuti Gatwa, as we all expected, because he's been announced as the next Doctor. But yeah, actually into David Tennant, as a surprise. So yeah, which was generally a surprise. I didn't see that coming.
I kind of did, if only because I get lots of sort of Doctor Who geek chat tweets we tweeted into my timeline, and it's very apparent that David Tennant has been around town doing a lot of Doctor Who filming, whereas Ncuti Gatwa doesn't seem to have done as much. So, yeah, I was sort of expecting this. I could have probably put some money on the last line of this episode being, What?
Yeah.
Because that was as inevitable as the day is long. But nonetheless, despite this, I'm interested. I'm up for it. There's a lot of, as you said, callbacks to old Who in this. So, next episode... or next few episodes for the 60th specials, let's give New Who a good homaging. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's about 20 years old. You know, there are Doctor Who fans young enough to not remember David Tennant's time as the Doctor, I'm sure. Partly because it is aimed at children. But yeah, I mean, I knew he was coming back for these specials they're doing next year, but I didn't realise he was going to be like the Doctor, not even like a kind of, I don't know, Doctor coming back.
Yeah, well, he's the 14th Doctor officially, apparently. Both the 10th and the 14th. The numbering system is increasingly in shambles.
It just makes no sense anymore, like the rest of Doctor Who.
But yeah, it's interesting. I guess the thing is, you know, just bringing the 10th Doctor back for a general multi-Doctor story. They did do that for the 50th. And obviously David Tennant still loves this shit and is still happy to come back, you know. He came back for the 50th. He's been doing, like, Big Finish audios over the last few years, and now he's coming back for the 60th as well. You know, I like the initiative by Russell T Davies here to maybe try and come up with a different way of just bringing David Tennant back, so people don't just go, he's back again, is he? That guy.
Well, I mean, it is good writing in the sense of instantaneously there's a mystery. Like, why is the Doctor regenerated into a previous Doctor rather than a new Doctor? That's never happened before. Like, what happened? I mean, I'm like, well, I want to find out what the explanation to that is. I hope it's not disappointing.
I want to know why he regenerated into his suit instead of appearing in Jodie Whittaker's clothes.
That is also the first time that's ever happened. No, is it?
I don't know, mate.
Well, write in if you know the answer to that.
I mean, considering even earlier in the same episode, we had Sacha Dhawan appear wearing Jodie Whittaker's costume and earring. You know, the precedent's very much in the episode.
Yes, with the weird hybrid of also Sylvester McCoy's jumper.
Those he put on later, but when he first regenerated into the Doctor's body, he was just wearing Jodie Whittaker's entire wardrobe.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I mean, it sets it up. I mean, again, setting things up, premises, the rules of Doctor Who, I mean, are just all over the wall at this point.
The answer is, of course, again, it feels right, and I'm sure that's the actual reason. But Russell T Davies is, you know, a big fan, so he may well throw us a line to justify it. Or, I mean, the fan theory I've seen on this is that they genuinely didn't know whether the show was going to be coming back, and like the big final scene where Jodie Whittaker regenerates on the cliffs at the cliff face, they pulled back from that, playing the big dramatic music, and they could have just cut to black.
Yeah.
Rather than showing a new Doctor. If it was possible, the show would be going on a hiatus.
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible.
So maybe the answer to the suit mystery is just that they filmed this months later and just didn't have Jodie Whittaker's costume handy. Who knows? Yeah,
I mean, it might be one of those technical things. But it is interesting. It did get my attention. It did make me excited for these specials to have, you know, Rusty Davis back and David Tennant back. So yeah, it serves the emotional arc of what's going on.
No, much as part of me wants to, you know, demand new things and new writers and new creative people, you know, Russell T Davies is one of the great TV writers of our times, so it seems churlish to complain about more Doctor Who work from him.
And we will be getting Shutigawa. You know, it's coming. He's
literally in the trailer. He's a coming. We may well even get the 14th and 15th Doctors coexisting for a bit, since they've got the resources to do that.
Yeah. So, you know, this is a bit of a victory lap, I don't know, for Tennant rather than a revival, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, my fan theory is that this is going to be about him, you know, making peace with his death after earlier disappearing with a sad sob of, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
This is about him coming back and dying in a slightly more positive way.
Yeah, I can believe that is probably exactly where they're going with this, yeah.
That's what I would do if I was called to write this story, but Russell T Davies is, as I just mentioned, much, much, much more talented than me.
Yeah, but overall, I was pleased with how this left Jodie Whittaker, and I have enjoyed certainly Jodie Whittaker's performance as the Doctor, so this was a good note to end on.
Yeah, no, this was fine. I came into it, as I do with all Jodie Whittaker episodes, slightly apprehensive and ended up thinking, yeah, that was fine, that was entertaining, I wasn't bored, I'll take it.
Finally, this episode, we will be discussing the 4th season of Ghosts, also from the BBC. Alison and her husband Mike have opened a guest house on the grounds of their haunted and dilapidated mansion to raise funds for the hotel they plan to open, and as a first step into the world of hospitality. Unfortunately, they also have to deal with the drama of a group of ghosts they live with, who are the sort of semi-corporeal forms of everyone who has died on the grounds over the centuries that people have been living there. Can they get this business to work? Can they get along as one happy, slightly strange, half-dead family? We've seen this complete season from the team that also brought us Horrible Histories. Nick, what did you think of it?
Yeah, this was my number one TV show on my top 10 list on this website last year, so shockingly enough, yeah, I enjoyed this new good series of this regularly and reliably good show, Imagine. As ever, skillfully juggling a large cast and multiple plot lines, providing a reliable sense of enjoyable farce, and plus a nice underlying sense of actual emotion. It's not so regular weepy. Like, I've watched shows like The Office and Parks and Rec, which, especially as they go along, start to really lean hard into trying to make you cry in almost every episode. And Ghosts, although it's a very sort of good vibes show, it does make you feel good about the world and reality. It's not really a particularly, even though it contains the occasional grisly joke about death, it's not, I would say, a particularly dark comedy. And yet, still funny, still good. Some pathos, but not an amount of pathos that feels mawkish. To be honest, after reviewing She-Hulk last episode and giving it a few props for managing to bring in some sitcom tropes, it's probably good to watch an actual decent sitcom and be reminded that those do contain, a much higher density of good jokes and actual, farcical plots. So yeah, still one of the better British sitcoms running. Great show. It's all on iPlayer. If you're in the UK, do watch it.
Yeah, I mean, this is really tight writing. I mean, I would compare it to some of the great sitcoms then in terms of the efficiency of the writing. Your Blackadders, your Father Teds, your Fawlty Towers, those kind of great British and Irish sitcoms of a certain thing when it's just really tight. Like every single line is basically either setting something up or paying something off. Like I say, like the absolute best episodes of Fawlty Towers or Blackadder have. And this is a very large cast. There must be about 10 regular characters.
I think, there's the two main characters, the living couple, and then eight ghosts, I think.
Yeah, that's not including characters introduced in each episode. So it's not easy to write something that big. And in most episodes, every character has something significant to contribute. No one's just kind of there hanging around in the background. There's usually 3 or so plot lines, but they will intersect, they will bounce off each other. I mean, just the sheer efficiency of the writing, it is. And I mean, these are 20-minute, 25-minute BBC sitcom episodes. So 10 characters, 25 minutes. The writing really does turn on a dime. I think I've mixed my metaphors there, but never mind. Obviously, I'm not a good writer. But, I think it really, you have to appreciate just how tightly written it is and how they kind of nail it, like I say. Every line is either setting something up or paying something off.
Yeah, and it's got a sort of classic sitcom sense of a sort of static characters. I mean, obviously, they're ghosts. Ultimately, they are kind of static characters. Yeah. But, the status quo doesn't change that much. I mean, it's nudged forward over the course of the 4 years. This year does take a big leap forward, I guess, with them actually opening their old house as a B&B.
Yeah, the guest house, is that's the main plot arc for this season. It's the thing that's different. But as you say, like a lot of sitcoms, this isn't doing something, that's more modern, say, and creating arc drama plots that run across, sitcoms. Again, like She-Hulk did or something like that. This is very much, group of characters, they interact in basically the same way each time, but how do they find funny and fresh ways each time to write the episodes? Yeah,
there's really not a lot to it in many ways other than just being funny, and it's just reliably good at being funny. There's an episode where the entire main plot is about the ghosts just meeting another ghost who lives nearby and having a range of friendly and or awkward interactions with them, and that's kind of it for a large chunk of that episode, and it's still just very, very funny.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that makes it really good is, as well as obviously the tight writing, they've got great characters. They've come up with a really interesting range of characters who, obviously, play off each other, they mirror each other's all kind of, there's ways they deliberately sort of antagonize each other. There's lots of comedic potential in this sort of range of slightly strange people who've died on this grounds. Everything from, a caveman, who's weirdly quite modern and intellectual at times, even though he also still chases after squirrels. All the way, there's a stuck-up Edwardian woman. There's a scoutmaster from the, there's a sleazy Tory politician who died in a bizarre sex act. Someone from the Second World War. I haven't mentioned about half of them. I mean, that's about half of them. There's a romantic poet who died in a duel. There's a lot of different characters in different periods, and they play off each other. They play together quite well. It's what makes the show works.
Yeah, it's like we've sort of said before about workplace comedies. They're all stuck together, which provides the weird drive of it. These people who maybe wouldn't entirely get along forming this sort of unlikely unit, which they just have to sort of get on with. Yeah, what makes it funny is the fact they can't just walk away for whatever reason. In this case, not because they're paid, but because they're dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's, again, it's a classic sort of sitcom setup in that regards, yeah. And there's some great moments. I did enjoy the bit when, they all sit around talking about the most famous person that they've met. Obviously, it's different people from throughout history. The poet met Byron and thought he was a knob. There's a guy from the 16th century who met Henry VIII and now is headless. The two events aren't actually connected. They sort of are, actually. But anyway, that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, and I thought the final episode, especially, where they sort of bring the B&B plotline from the rest of the series to a sort of climax was pretty great. Like, it's a good show. It's always a good show. All the episodes are good. But I thought the final episode this year was fantastic. Masterpiece of juggling this farce and this sort of... They used the sort of in media res flashback at the start, well, flash forward, sorry, to show you something that was going to happen. And then they spent the rest of the episode sort of hinting at it in this really overplayed, melodramatic way. It was like watching a Final Destination film. Like, when is this disaster going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just very, very well done.
Yeah. No, exactly. And yeah, that paid it off, and obviously did actually set the plot off in a new direction. So yeah, which I guess they'll be picking up in the next season. There are revelations, and there are some, I guess, changes to status quo. Like I say, there's the finale does send off the plot in a new direction. One of the big mysteries is they slowly reveal how each of the ghosts died. I think we got to the point when we know all of them apart from the captain, maybe. They obviously, and yeah, some of them are quite sad when it revealed what happened. Some of them are quite silly. Some of them are a bit of both. But yeah, revealing how Robin died. Yeah, again, the Robin the Caveman was again a sort of sad moment, but also a bit silly as well.
Yeah, and the annual sort of bit of pathos really this year didn't come from a death in the past, but one of the main cast sort of finally ascending to their ultimate reward.
Yes, when they leave this mortal plane to travel to the next one, or as they refer to it, being sucked off. With the irony of someone who doesn't understand what that means in the modern context.
Yeah, I did wonder when they pulled that one on, and it was nicely done. I had sort of noted that character getting a bit more play in the episodes leading up to it, and fair enough, made it stick a bit more.
Yes, I think also the fact when after they revealed how that character died and what happened, I felt they're kind of running out of places where to go with the character now. That character I felt fully explored, so that's the one that moves on. I mean, we'll try not to spoil it, because if you haven't seen the show, I would recommend it, and it's probably not as high profile as Doctor Who.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this, I mean, I know there's the American version now, which I gather is going on iPlayer in the next couple of weeks, so...
Interesting.
I may well at least sample the American version, but whether the American version's good or not, this is one of the great British sitcoms of our time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, there's the horrible histories people, they know what they're doing. Lots of people who are famous for being in other comedies and stuff as well. There's Simon Farnaby plays Julian, the Tory MP. He's, as well as doing Paddington, obviously did Detectorists, which is a great sitcom that I highly recommend. Jim Howick, who plays Pat, he obviously was in Peep Show a lot and was very good in Peep Show. Yeah, there's lots of people. Yeah, Charlotte Ritchie, who was Alison, the living woman in it, obviously was in Fresh Meat. So yeah, there's a lot of talented comedy people in this.
Yeah, and she's good actually, Charlotte Ritchie, and Keel Smith-Bino, who plays her husband. They're playing slightly, I don't know, I guess, straight person parts compared to the sort of the comedy characters of the ghosts. They're both the sort of straight man of this show in different ways. And, it could be quite an unrewarding part, but they're both really, really good and really, really likeable, and they keep finding new ways to explore their relationship and make it funny.
Yeah, there's some classic sitcom moments, like there's a bit where Mike tries to give Alison a relaxing afternoon off, but gets every part of it wrong and ends up being stressful. So yeah, it's a classic sort of sitcom plotline, yeah.
And when he gets trapped in a Zorb, which was...
I forgot about that.
Baffling, yeah.
Yeah, that was also very funny. They're a really sort of sweet couple, and there's some nice coupley moments. You really believe in them that they are like this late millennial couple trying to strike out in the world. They've left London because they couldn't afford anything other than like a damp flat above a kebab shop. And now they're trying to live in the country and restore this crazy dilapidated building. Yeah, but you kind of really believe in their relationship, which again is kind of, I guess, one of the lodestones of the show. And it's partly because, the performances of the two people in the part are great.
Yeah, they're very realistically, or at least, believably played as this couple who have their sort of their ups and their downs and their disagreements and stuff, but still seem like they, love each other and probably should be together.
Yeah, which is good, yeah. And it also has that element of, which I think we discussed before, that some of the best sitcoms have, like that they end on usually a warm, touching note. Kind of, they don't end on usually a joke right at the end, because the episode is absolutely packed full of jokes. Rather than having a big joke right at the end of the episode, they usually end on a warm, touching moment of kind of, of love and family bonding, which I think actually, kind of leaves you with that nice kind of warm feeling of enjoyment. I mean, the best sitcoms do that really well. Classic Simpsons really nailed that maneuver. King of the Hill really nails it as well.
Yeah, I don't think Ghosts goes for that quite as hard as some shows. Like, as I sort of said earlier, some shows go for that to an almost mawkish degree, whereas I think Ghosts is willing to end on a joke.
Yeah. I think there is that element, which is one of the things why I wasn't so much a fan of Family Guy, because Family Guy always tries to go in with a nasty joke at the end, and it just leaves you with some people like that, but it leaves you with this kind of unpleasant taste in the mouth, whereas the kind of the positive associations, I think, work better. And it's really good writing to be aware that if you've got enough jokes in your sitcom episode, you don't need one more just as the audience, punches out.
Well, yeah, I don't think the jokes aren't nasty, which is probably a key point.
That's also true. But yeah, I mean, curious to see how long they're going to keep going with this. I mean, it is quite static, as you say, and, they are exploring all the characters. They can obviously introduce new ghosts.
Yeah, obviously a lot of British sitcoms go, relatively quick and out, a couple of series, and Ghosts has now had 4 series and shown no sign of having a clear ending, so I am interested to see what their long-term plan is.
It's consistent. However, like Peep Show managed about 5 great seasons and then several bad seasons that they probably shouldn't have made. So, I don't know. Let that be a lesson to writers.
You would think that keeping a cast this size together, just the practicalities of that would mean they can't run it for like a decade, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. There's a limit to how many times you can combine these characters in different circumstances and make it as good as it is. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the fact that each episode is really, really spot on, there's a limit to how long you can sustain that for. I mean, John Cleese stopped making 40 Towers because he felt he couldn't deliver another season to the standard of the other ones. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the fact that there are this many characters means there's quite a lot of combinations, but I'm sure they probably have got through a fair percentage of them now.
Yeah, if you're looking for a sitcom, one that isn't, hugely well known, which I think is a bit of a shame, dig this out on iPlayer. Highly recommend it.
Okay, thank you for listening to Moderate Fantasy Violence. If you've enjoyed our BBC Centennial celebration, then why not go to our website at moderatefantasyviolence.com, where you can find all sorts of similar content about other things. Or you can go to your podcast app of choice and leave us a nice 5-star review. Thank you.
You can also follow us on social media by finding us on Twitter, where we're at MFV Podcast. Do send in your thoughts about the things we cover so we can discuss them on the show. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Moderate Fantasy Violence. If you want to find out more about me, what I'm up to, you can follow me on Twitter, where I'm at AlistairJRBall, or go to my website, which is redtrainblog.com.
And you can find me online at nickbryan.com or on Twitter as @nickmb, or if you're going to the Thought Bubble Comic Convention in Harrogate on the weekend of the 12th and 13th of November, you can find me in the Comixology Hall at table 94 towards the back. So come along, say hello, buy a copy of my Death of a Necromancer book, finally available in print. Or, if you're not going to be there for any of those things, you can also find me in the next episode of Moderate Fantasy Violence, where we will be covering Black Panther Wakanda Forever, of course, and also hot comedy drama kitchen show The Bear. See you in 2 weeks for that. Bye-bye.
Bye.